Hey everybody, Josh Nordine bringing you another exciting YouTube tutorial for Accord Forms. And today we're going to be looking at the Business Auto section, Accord 127. Now, this Accord form is used in conjunction with the Accord 137. You do need to have both forms. The 137 explains how we're going to cover the vehicles, but the 127 explains what vehicles we're actually going to cover. And it also talks about some of the other yes-no questions and eligibility. So, this form, the 127, is not state specific. So you can use the 127 for any of your, obviously, commercial autos, and you will need to. The 137 is state specific. It changes based on the state for things like personal injury protection versus MedPay. So let's go ahead and get started with the 127. And like always, you can subscribe to my channel. I will have more videos coming out regarding Accord Forms plus, agency best practices. So let's go ahead and get started. As I fill out the common things here, I will mention that I highly recommend you also email me or drop me a note in the comments if you'd like the templates of these forms, as well as kind of some of the highlighted versions that are blank but with the sections highlighted that you need to get a quote. Also, the only thing that we're going to fill out on these forms is what you actually need to get a quote. So we're going to skip things like obviously policy number and stuff like that. We don't have any of that information yet. So all of this is just to get a quote. All right. Whoa. We'll go ahead and use the right numbers here. All right. Now the named insured should always be the entity, not just the doing business as. All right, you can include like Joe's HVAC Inc., DBA, Joe's Heating, or whatever they do business as. You can obviously use that as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down here, and we're going to look at the driver information. Now, if there's more drivers than will fit in this section, you can attach the Accord 163. This is just going to add additional spots. And this driver number is about as straightforward as you can imagine. It's just number them in order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you'll just list them on down the line here. So in this instance, we don't actually need to include the city, state, and zip code. We're just going to include the name. We do need to include the sex. In this case, we're going to put male. And we do need to include the date of birth. Whoops. All right. And we don't need to include these things, but we do need to include the driver's license number. I don't know how many numbers are in a driver's license. We'll pretend like there's that many. Okay, we need to include the state license, and we need to include which vehicle number that they use. Now, if they use any of the vehicles, you can just put any. That's okay too. Ideally, you would put the percentage use if you know it, but if not, you can leave that blank in order to get a quote, okay? So again, most of the time, you can just put any here, and then you can leave the rest of the parts blank. And you would just simply fill the rest out the same exact way. So this part doesn't need to be super complicated. That's all we need in order to get a quote. We don't need marital status or anything like that. Okay, when we get down to the general information section here, we're just going to read through these. I'm not going to read them on the video here, but you just want to read through these and make sure that there's nothing that applies. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to put no. Okay, let's just say yes. Okay, all right. This is a good one to put yes on. Is there a vehicle maintenance program? You should put yes there. Most places do, but that also helps. Vehicles leased to others is a good one to put no if they don't, obviously. That's an eligibility thing in some cases. If they have special equipment, you could put yes, and then you could, of course, just put down here exactly what that is. So vehicle number 1, and let's just say it has like some sort of like a air compressor. I don't know, some special air compressor on the back. I'm not a contractor. Let's just say that it costs like, $5,000. Okay, so you do want to add those special modifications if there are anything. And this again would be something like physically attached to the vehicle, not like if it's just like in the bed of the truck, but like if they have some special like super something. Air compressor is probably a bad example, but like a winch or some sort of a boom or something like that that they've added. Okay, now filings. This usually will always be yes if this is some sort of a trucking operation that goes more than one state. And you notice it says if yes, attach Accord 194. Now we're getting into trucking, okay? Interstate commerce. So most contractors or commercial lines will be a no unless they do a cross-state trucking stuff. All right, or hopefully not in transporting hazardous material. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay. Oddly enough, sometimes this will be yes and spouses. You could put that down. All right. This is always good to put yes before they hire people, that they get MVRs. This is always good to put yes. And if they don't have one, in later videos I'll talk about resources that you can use to provide your contractors or your commercial lines customers with things like recruiting methods. All right. Okay. And we're just looking down here. Now this will always almost be yes, that somebody's going to have a driving violation, and you're not obviously, oh, one person has a driver. I mean, that's obviously not realistic. So usually what you're going to need to put here is just see attached MVRs. Okay, something like that. If you have them. If you don't have the MVRs, you can leave this blank and just put yes. But the carriers don't always want to pull the MVRs, so it is sometimes good to pull those. The other reason I'm going to really, this is important for selling commercial lines, you have to sell the carrier first before you can sell the customer. The carrier's in charge of the premium, so you live and die by what the underwriter decides. So here's the thing. If you pull the MVRs before you send in the Accord applications, which I highly recommend for this very reason. If there's one driver, I had this example, it was a flower shop. Everybody on the flower shop driving list was pretty decent. I mean, some, speeding tickets, things like that. But the owner's son had a DUI. And had I not pulled the MVRs, I would have sent it in. And the problem is when they rate for vehicles or when they underwrite an account, the worst driving record in a lot of cases is the rate. So by excluding that person, I asked the owner, I said, how often does your son drive the vehicles? And he said, well, I just have him listed for when he works if he drives a vehicle. And obviously I'd need to have him sign a driver exclusion that I keep, so he acknowledges that he's not going to let his son drive the vehicle. But I was able to then not list him on the driving list and saved a ton of money. And obviously was able to quote with many more carriers, because most carriers wouldn't have allowed a driver with a DUI on the driver's list. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't pulled the MVRs ahead of time. Now, you can possibly get that information from the underwriters when you send it in without pulling MVRs. But the problem is, a lot of times you'll just get a declination or a no response back. And usually at the last minute when you kind of need the quote. So pull those MVRs, identify who you may need to exclude. Just ask the owners, do these people really need to drive? And then you can make a good decision from there. And by the way, when you're approaching the business owners for privacy reasons, it is important not to state, oh, Joe has a DUI, can I remove him from the driver's list? You just need to say something like, hey, how often does Joe really drive? Does he need to be listed as a driver? There are some things on his motor vehicle record that adversely affect the rate. That's the best way to answer that, to explain that to the agency or the customer. All right, so that is that. We're going to usually put yes here if possible. It's good to take a look at those vehicles. It also looks good to the underwriters. Okay, are they part of a fleet? No. And if they have electronic monitoring devices, let's just say for the heck of it that Joe's truck has location tracking for whatever reason. That is how you would fill that out if there's some sort of like a monitoring or transmitting device. Okay. All right. We are not going to worry about this little section here. All right, I'm just double checking. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and take a look at the additional interests. Now, this is basically, oh, I'm sorry. We don't need to put the maximum dollar amount, but we do need to put the location. So let's just say, whoops, sorry, I had my caps lock on. Okay, we'll just put down the town, basically. And then Additional interest, this is going to be if they have like a loan on the vehicle, and here you would just put the bank information or bank loan company, you know, whatever the address is here, whatever, okay? And then if they need something like a certificate of insurance or anything like that, you can list that as well, okay? So that's all there is to that. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the next section, which is the vehicle section. Okay, so this is where we're going to list the vehicle, and if just like if you run out of drivers and you need to attach the 163, you can attach the 129 if you need additional vehicles listed if there's not enough room on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start listing out our fun vehicles, and I am only going to list the vehicles that we need in order to get a quote, because who wants to fill out more than they have to? All right, so first things first, and I'm just checking my notes here, so let's make sure I'm not skipping anything. Nope, we're all good. Okay, so we do need to fill out the vehicle and the year. Okay, I'm going to say it's like 2009. We'll say that this is a Chevy. We'll say it is a Silverado. Oops. Okay, forgive my clicking here. Sometimes I usually would use a management system, but I know not everyone has a management system that has the Accord forms built in, so that's why I'm just using the Accord application itself here. Body type is pickup, and then we do need to list out the VIN. You know, whatever the VIN is. Okay, now here's a fun question. Is it private passenger, is it special, or is it commercial? Here's the best way to judge this. If it's less than 14,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight, then you could probably put down private passenger. A good way to know that is this something that you would buy and drive just for your family car or just for your vehicle? So like a Chevy Silverado, I mean, that's a big pickup in some cases, but you'd still drive that for like a normal vehicle. Now, when you get into some really, really big vehicles, like especially like trucks, you know, cargo vehicles, you know, like some Ford F-350s that are like just monster beasts type of things, those can be considered commercial. I mean, we're talking like, you know, like your U-Haul type trucks, or like a lot of times you see like those Dodge Sprinters, which is like a cargo type vehicle. Obviously any sort of like truck trailer type thing. Then of course special, oops, sorry. So in this case it's private passenger. Those would be examples of commercial, like really big trucks or, you know, things like that. Special would be like if you get into like a, you know, a trailer, like a bucket truck, anything that has like some sort of mechanical features and that sort of thing, but that's still like a road vehicle. That would be considered like special. Or if it exceeds 33,000 pounds of gross vehicle weight, those are a lot of times considered special. And your underwriters are going to kind of correct this for you, so you're not going to have to spend a ton of time on this. But at least if you get them in the right direction, that's cool. So that's all you really need to know about this part of it. We're going to talk more about gross vehicle weight in a second, okay? So that's all we need. We don't need to fill out any of this stuff up there, whatever the heck that is. We don't really need the street, but we do need the city and the county and the state. So all right, we'll throw in the county and the state and the zip code. All right, then we're going to do the license state, and we're going to do the gross vehicle weight. Okay, gross vehicle weight. So you notice that there are two things here, GVW/GCW. All right. Gross vehicle weight versus gross curb weight. The curb weight, the second one here, the gross curb weight, is how much the vehicle just weighs by itself with, you know, the permanent equipment attached. So like the Silverado with the air compressor attached is the gross curb weight. The gross vehicle weight is how much the vehicle would weigh if it was completely loaded down to its maximum capacity. So let's just say that this Silverado, if you filled the bed of the pickup up to the brim, let's say the gross vehicle weight is like 8,000 pounds. That would be the GVW. Now, I'm going to give you my experience on this, okay, because every underwriter will probably tell you a different thing, but I'm telling you how I've been able to get quotes. If it's a private passenger vehicle, I typically do not need to list the gross vehicle weight. If it is a commercial or a special vehicle, then I need to list the gross vehicle weight. And there's a couple ways to get the gross vehicle weight. So in this example, where I'm just using the Chevy Silverado, I don't need to list it in most cases, okay? Unless you get a really picky underwriter. But let's pretend like this is an actual like Dodge Sprinter truck with like cargo capability. And I chose commercial, for example. In that case, the gross vehicle weight is located on the inside door jamb of the driver's side of the vehicle, and it's like usually right there with like the VIN. So if you're out personally inspecting the vehicles and you can open up the doors, you can just snap a picture of the inside of the door jamb and there's the gross vehicle weight. It's pretty simple. The other way that you can do it are if you literally Google, and I'm going to use the Google method here because things change, and by the time I upload this video, a new site might be better. But there are websites out there, if you just simply Google gross vehicle weight lookup, you can find a site usually that will actually type in the VIN or type in the vehicle type, and it'll give you the gross vehicle weight. A good one, for example, is CMVID. CMVID. That's one where you can type in the VIN or type in the make and model, and it'll give you the gross vehicle weight. Most of the time, if you just put one number in, which most of the time is all people do, they're just listing the gross vehicle weight. You typically don't need both. If you just put in one number, use the gross vehicle weight. So that's all there is to that. So that's a part where a lot of times people will get apps bounced back or they run into questions. So hopefully that cleared that up for you and it'll save you some time. Another question I get a lot is radius. All right. So if it travels within 50-mile radius, remember diameter is the whole width of the circle. Radius is from the center to the outside edge. If it's within a 50-mile radius of a town, that's considered local, and you can just put an L, okay? If it's like 200-mile radius, which would mean a 400-mile diameter, that would be, you'd need to put in the actual number here. So in that case, the radius would be 200. In most cases, if it's just like a local contractor, I'm going to use L, but if it's some sort of like a vehicle that travels back and forth between towns, then you might put the actual radius that it travels back and forth. Just don't get radius and diameter mixed up because you'll charge the customer extra premium. All right, so that's all there is to that. We do need to put in the cost new. All right, that's something that you can also find online. I think, let's see here. Let's just say like I'm probably off on this. I'm not a pickup guy. I'm a car guy, so I'll put down whatever the heck I think that thing costs new. And then the use here is almost always going to be commercial. You can try to get specific on these sort of things, but most of the time, if it's commercial, they can be commercial. Now, if the business owns the vehicle and they just use it for personal use, you can put pleasure, but typically you might get questions from the underwriter as to why that's on here, so I almost always just use commercial, all right? Otherwise, I just put it on a personal policy. Okay, next on the list, we need to list out what coverages that we need for this vehicle. So we're always going to probably put down liability. All right, that's of course, and we're gonna we go over this on the Accord 137. I have a video for that on the website here on the YouTube channel, so check that out, and this will explain all of this, so I won't go into detail here. On our example, we did MedPay. Of course, we did underinsured and uninsured motorist. We did add towing on our example, and we added special, and we added comp. Okay, oops, sorry, my bad. We did not add special. That's a horrible idea. Let's not do that. Okay, so we're just going to do comp and collision. Okay, comp and collision. And then let's see here. A lot of times you can do rental reimbursement if you need to, but then also let's talk most importantly about the deductibles. So almost always it's going to be actual cash value. All right, stated amount, and that's like if it's like a classic vehicle, or if they want, it's almost always actual cash value. That's just the way that underwriters are typically writing policies these days. And then we're going to go ahead and put down comprehensive and collision. Okay, so the deductibles for comp and collision. All right, so for comp, that's the top one here. let's just say we want like $1,000 deductible for comp, and we want like $1,000 deductible for collision. And that's all there is to it. Comp, deductible, collision deductible. That's why we didn't list the deductible on the Accord 137. Okay, so that's how that should look. Pretty simple. Let's see if there's anything else on here. You know what? Congratulations, you're done with the Accord form. So that's all there is to it. Again, make sure and check out the Accord 137 video. Subscribe for more videos coming up, including best practices. And if you need a copy of these, like templates or just blank versions with the sections highlighted that you need in order to get a quote, feel free to drop me a comment with your email address or shoot me an email. And I look forward to talking with you again soon. Have a great week.